Okay, so first, a massive apology that this video is coming as late as it is. The first semester of uni is now officially over and done with, so I can actually get back to the important stuff in life, like talking about movies and TV shows and celebrity gossip. Yeah, that stuff all really matters in 2020. That's also a notice that if I don't upload as frequently as I used to for the next little while, the simpler answer is and always shall be uni. That's really the only excuse that I have. It's either going to be uni work or I have slipped into some kind of strange introverted coma from not socializing with others for so long. Right, now that that's over and done with, on with the video. So in case you haven't heard, Johnny Depp, the famous performer, musician, and spokesman for the Paleface Actors Guild, was cut from his role as Gellert Grindelwald in the third Fantastic Beasts movie after losing an ongoing libel case with The Sun for calling him a wife-beater in one of their headlines. Given his sizable popularity, the internet has been awash with people praising and supporting Depp and denouncing Warner Brothers for making this decision, which, frankly, I find kind of hilarious, considering that at one point in time everybody was complaining about how terribly cast he was as Grindelwald, but whatever. Many have condemned Warner Brothers for putting the final nail in the coffin of Depp's already failing career, effectively cancelling him for good, and I hate using that word. And while yes, Warner Brothers dropping an actor as soon as he invites the possibility of a little too much drama is the kind of cowardly move that you would expect from a multi-billion-dollar film company, it would be fallacious to say that this didn't have some build-up. If you take a gander through Depp's personal and professional history, you would be in for some interesting and quite tragic reading. So feel free to sit back, relax, and let me do all of that for you. Johnny Depp was born in 1963 in Owensboro, Kentucky to Betty Sue Palmer and John Christopher Depp. His dad died when he was 15 and his mum remarried to Robert Palmer, whom Depp has always cited as being a major inspiration during his youth. Having been given a guitar on his 12th birthday, Depp began playing in bands and even dropped out of high school to become a rock musician. Hey, it was the 70s, all the cool kids were doing it. In fact, funny story that I actually came across while researching for this video, Depp actually tried to get back into high school 2 weeks after dropping out, but the head teacher encouraged him not to and told him to follow his dream. Wow, that was one chill head teacher. Collaborating with bands such as The Kids and Rock City Angels, no, I've never heard of them either, Depp eventually married Laurie Ann Allison, the sister of Rock City Angels bassist and singer, and while married, Depp continued to work odd jobs before his wife introduced him to none other than one Nicolas Cage, who advised Depp to pursue a career in acting. Depp and his wife split in 1975 after Depp landed his first film role in A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's kind of hard imagining that this is the same guy who would go on to play this a couple of decades later. After his breakout role, Depp continued to star in films like Private Resort, Thrashin', and even had a minor role in Platoon. It was around this time that he became something of a teen icon when he appeared as an undercover police officer / high school student in 21 Jump Street. But despite his success, Depp wasn't really happy being branded as the stereotypical teenage heartthrob. Said Depp, "I felt like the series forced me into the role of product." Gonna come back to that one. Deciding to stick to film roles which he felt were right for him, Depp's career continued well into the 90s, with his first big collaboration with Tim Burton being Edward Scissorhands. The film was a major success, being both a critical darling and grossing $86 million on a $20 million budget. Really, this was the film which not only catapulted Depp's career to new heights, but also cemented his long-standing partnership with Tim Burton for years to come. Said producer Scott Rudkin, "Basically, Johnny Depp is playing Tim Burton in all of his movies," and while Burton himself hasn't agreed with this particular statement, seems about right to me. Edward Scissorhands seems to be where the switch flipped for Depp. His transition from being the stereotypical pretty boy to the more indie film actor that he was longing to become. People like to debate where his transformation into the weird phase began, with some saying it was Pirates of the Caribbean, others saying it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but really it began here. Despite one or two outliers like the 1990s musical Cry Baby, Depp would stick to the weirder, less conventional film roles after Edward Scissorhands, or are at least less conventional than the usual Hollywood fare. Movies like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Arizona Dream, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, these are not the kind of roles that you or your typical Hollywood producer would expect from an actor who began his career as the teenage heartthrob. One particularly underrated Depp performance that came out of this period was his stint in Tim Burton's Ed Wood, a film which, in his own words, rejuvenated his love for acting. Seriously, it's a great film, you should check it out if you haven't already. I think this period in the 90s speaks to much of Depp's appeal. He can be handsome, charming, and womanizing one minute, deep, soulful, and insightful the next, before steering right into weird, edgy wackiness territory apropos of nothing. Whatever he feels like playing, he plays, and more often than not, he can pull it off. Depp has the capacity to slip into any number of roles regardless of the genre of film, and that independent spirit is part of the reason that he is so popular, and nowhere was this better demonstrated than in 2003's Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow,
Captain Jack Sparrow, if you please,
really embodied Depp's entire acting persona. Free-spirited, unconventional, non-conformist, refusing to tie himself to any particular identity other than his own. It's kind of unsurprising that Depp chose to take this of all roles on, and sure enough ended up doing wonders for his already impressive career. While the film was praised to the moon and back for a variety of reasons and made a boatload of money at the box office, Depp's iconic performance received particular praise, even earning him a nomination for Best Actor, and has since gone down in history as one of the most famous action heroes of all time. Pirates of the Caribbean signified the high point for Depp's career, and in fairness, it did take a few years for that star to come crashing down again. As far as roles went, the early to mid-2000s was a gold mine for Depp. Captain Jack Sparrow had cemented him as Hollywood gold, and for a while it seemed like his star was only going to rise even higher. He received praise for playing J.M. Barrie in Finding Neverland, and continued his collaborations with Tim Burton with the likes of Corpse Bride and Sweeney Todd, both excellent films which delivered equally excellent performances from Depp, the latter of which even earned him a Golden Globe. But sadly, the first signs of Depp's future downfall reared their heads around this period as well, specifically with his role as Wonka in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This was really the first instance of people criticizing Depp's love of the weird and unconventional rather than praising it. Everything from the pale face makeup to the weird accent and mannerisms. If Captain Jack Sparrow was just the right amount of weird, Willy Wonka was too much. But this just seemed like an outlier rather than a dark portent of things to come. A mere blip in Depp's otherwise near spotless rise to fame. It wasn't like he was going to make a habit of taking roles like this, right?
Wrong.
Between 2010 and 2012, two things happened, and these two things were called Alice in Wonderland and Dark Shadows. These films were pretty much the sign of the end times for Depp's acting career. He was playing the exact same character, I mean, fuck, they even looked identical, and both were clearly inspired by, if not blatantly ripping off, the kind of Jack Sparrow weirdness which propelled Depp to Hollywood stardom in the first place. If people were on the fence about whether this brand of weirdness was annoying or charming, these films tipped the scales firmly over to the former. Gone were the days of cool, fun piracy, or thoughtful think pieces, or mature crime dramas. Depp had well and truly cemented himself as the weird guy of Hollywood, the Tim Burton imitator, the pale-face oddball stereotype. Dark Shadows in particular brought Depp's talent and stardom into question, with the film doing very poorly at the box office, and Depp's performance drawing sharp criticism from both audiences and critics who were just sick to death of his shtick by this point. And it was only gonna get worse. Following Dark Shadows, we had Tonto in that Lone Ranger movie that no one remembers, and he did the wolf in Into the Woods before Depp finally finished up the trio with Gellert Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and its sequel. I like to call them the Pale Man Group.
Open your balls.
I shan't.
The 2010s was where the bubble finally burst, the point when everyone understood that the party was well and truly over. As so often happens in Hollywood, what made Depp so iconic initially as an actor ended up being the killer of his career. His unconventional, weird and wacky nature became stale and worn out. Ironically enough, his refusal to commit to a particular acting brand became an acting brand. As soon as the Hollywood execs found out that there was money to be made in this kind of unconventional oddness, you can be damn well sure that they milked that sucker for all of its worth. And in a way, it's hard to see Depp as anything other than the victim here. He made huge strides forward and found great success in his early career by defying conventions and breaking through that Hollywood system. He didn't want to do the handsome pretty boy routine, he wanted to do his own thing. But now, that same Hollywood system has simply adapted to the situation, finding new ways to make the unconventional profitable, thereby pigeonholing Depp into a brand that he probably did not want. After 21 Jump Street in the 1980s, Depp said that he didn't want to be treated as a product. Now in 2020, that's exactly what he's become. His free spirit and unconventional nature has simply become something to sell, and there's a real depressing tragedy in that. It's a sign that no matter what it is, Hollywood will latch on to the nearest source of profit that they can find like a damn symbiote and drain it dry until every atom of creative energy has been sucked away. I like to think that Depp looks back in fond nostalgia in those early days of the 2000s. That really was the highlight of his career, the time when he was quite literally on top of the world. I hope he's able to carry the memories of those successes with him the same way that we do. I hope that he eventually finds a way to rekindle that free spirit that Hollywood has just stomped out of existence. The artistic spirit, the rebel spirit, that undefinable allure which radiated from him before all the hackneyed roles, before the binge drinking, before the abusive relationships, all the court cases and tabloid stories. Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot I had to go over that stuff as well. Depp's recent forays into drinking and drugs is depressingly nothing new. By his own admission, his struggles with addiction began all the way back when he started taking his mum's nerve pills when he was 11. He was smoking at 12 and by 14 had tried every kind of drug there was. From alcohol to hash to roxycodone, Depp's road to 2020 has been, shall we say, a little bumpy. Though he has tried several times to kick his various habits, anyone who has experienced addiction will know that it is never quite that simple, especially when you're starting as young as 11. But then comes the abusive relationship and the legal problems and yeah, go ahead and get comfortable because things are about to get real uncomfortable. Depp's long-standing hate-off with Amber Heard has been well documented, but here's a quick summary for anyone who needs it. Heard and Depp first started going out in 2009 after meeting on the set of The Rum Diary. After 6 years together, they tied the knot, only for Heard to divorce Depp in 2016, and just to take things up a notch, she filed a restraining order out on her ex-hubby, citing verbal and physical abuse on Depp's part. This got the lawyers involved, with Heard essentially looking for a financial settlement out of the divorce, even testifying about Depp's abuse under oath while photo evidence circulated online and in magazines across the globe. Eventually, a $7 million settlement was reached which Heard donated to charity. The divorce was finalized in 2017, Heard lifted the restraining order, and that appeared to be that. The pair even made a joint statement after the affair, stating that their relationship was intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. Neither party has made false accusations for financial gain. There was never any intent of physical or emotional harm. And then, a whole 2 years later, Depp filed a $50 million lawsuit against Heard for defamation after she wrote a co-op for the Washington Post where she framed herself as a survivor and Depp as an abuser. This was when we got the revelation that Heard may not have been as innocent as she wanted us to believe in this whole relationship, with Depp claiming that she had physically abused him and that her claims were just an outright hoax. Around the same time, Depp brought a libel lawsuit against News Group newspapers after The Sun, one of their publishings, called him a wife-beater in a 2018 article. And in case you haven't been following the news, Depp lost the case this year with the High Court of Justice ruling that the great majority of alleged assaults of Miss Heard by Mr. Depp have been been proved to the civil standard, with no evidence of a hoax against Depp being evident. Heard eventually issued a countersuit against Depp in August of this year, alleging that he had coordinated a harassment campaign via Twitter and by orchestrating online petitions in an effort to get her fired from Aquaman and L'Oreal. So that is where we are at the time of me writing this video. Since Warner Brothers' decision to sack Depp, he has received a welter of online support and is in fact planning to appeal the court's decision regarding his lawsuit. As for the whole Depp-Heard feud, this is still an ongoing story, and I hate speculating on something I don't have all the info on. I also don't like seeing people pile on hate trains blindly before they have all of the facts, which people were doing to Depp when this whole abuse story first broke, and it seems like people are doing it once again when it comes to Amber Heard. Now don't get me wrong, all evidence points to the fact that Heard had a significant hand in the abuse within that marriage. That being said, it would be extremely disingenuous to suggest that either Heard or Depp were wholly innocent in this. From all the evidence submitted under oath in court by both parties, it is clear that physical and emotional abuse occurred, and there do need to be consequences, and that is where I think people can get legitimately angry. The fact that Amber Heard walked away from the initial legal battle pretty much smelling like a rose, while Depp was dragged through the coals and has now lost a major movie gig because of it, is clearly unjust. As I said, all evidence points to the fact that she played a part in this abuse, and yet she isn't suffering for it as much as Depp is. But given Depp's various legal issues over the years, his troubles with drugs and alcohol, which he does not look to have overcome, it would be just as naive to assume that he is innocent in all this as it would be for me to assume that Heard is innocent as well. To my eyes, this was a mutually toxic relationship and both parties should face consequences. However, at this point, only one party has actually suffered any. Depp's already struggling career is at risk of plummeting completely due to this ongoing legal battle, not to mention the damage caused by the emotional and psychological trials that he's had to face from both lawsuits and his incredibly abusive marriage. Addiction is something of a self-perpetuating cycle, one that is incredibly difficult to break, especially when trapped in a toxic relationship. Abuse leads to depression, leads to drugs, leads to addiction, leads to abuse, and then so on and so forth. And that is the key difference. Amber Heard has not fallen down a deep addiction hole that we know of because of this whole affair. Depp has. It's really hard to get a handle on an actor like Johnny Depp, which is part of the reason why I think he has been so popular throughout the years. He straddles a fine line between heroic and horrifying, fun and depressing, suave and silly. He's kind of the living embodiment of that get you a guy who can do both meme. But the downside to this is that for every great thing that Depp does, it's balanced out by something equally dicey. The highest highs are often followed by the lowest lows. For every Jack Sparrow, there's a Willy Wonka. For every Ed Wood, there's a Mad Hatter. For every heartwarming children's hospital trip, there's a drug-addled abuse story. Depp's career is defined by inconsistency, and that variety I think is the reason people love him so much. There's a reason why, even after all of the scandals and legal battles, Depp is still beloved by so many. As much as he has become tainted by his poor role choices and his various legal battles in recent years, those early performances of his are still iconic. They've left such a lasting impact on our collective consciousness that we still want to see more from him. I genuinely want to see Depp recover from this. I want to see him pull something of a Robert Downey Jr., go clean, get off the booze, get off the drugs, reinvent himself. I want to see him come back to Hollywood swinging. I want to see him do something new and creative, something that just really invigorates his career once again. I hope the online support that he's gotten will tell the studios not to wholesale abandon Depp, because I know he's got more to offer. I know he can do better. I know he can be better. I know that he is better than all of the scandals that he has had to face in these recent times. And I think I'll conclude with the one Pirates of the Caribbean quote which I think best sums up both Captain Jack Sparrow and the terrific actor playing him.
This is either madness or brilliance.
It's remarkable how often those two traits coincide.
Yep, can't argue with that.